Good evening, I'm Brett Baer. This is a Fox News alert. We are seeing the first images of two men the FBI is now labeling as suspects in Monday's Boston Marathon bombing. Now they're simply known as suspect number 1 and suspect number 2. 40 minutes ago, the FBI released video and still pictures and asked the public's help in identifying and finding these two men. They're considered armed and dangerous. We have Fox team coverage tonight. Catherine Herridge is following the intelligence angle and has fascinating information about the role of social media. But we begin with senior correspondent Rick Leventhal and the latest on this investigation and this video and these pictures. Good evening, Rick.
Good evening, Brett. Dramatic developments within the last hour, and there's good news and bad news here. The bad news is the FBI would not be releasing this video and these still photos if it knew who these guys were or knew where they were. The good news is if these two men spent any time in the United States, based on the video and the photographs, someone knows who they are, someone will recognize them, and someone could give the FBI the information that it needs to catch these two men. Let's show you the video and show you the stills once again. You can see these two men. The first man, suspect number 1, wearing a dark jacket. He has a dark hat. He has a backpack, and he's wearing khakis. Suspect number 2, he has a white hat where he's wearing it backwards. He also has a dark jacket and jeans. Suspect number 2, according to the FBI, was seen putting his backpack down at the site of the second explosion and then walking away, walking west on Boylston Street after planting that bomb. The FBI says it developed this they developed a single person of interest. Then with the help of the Joint Terrorism Task Force, the more than 30 agencies involved were able to develop this second suspect, and now they have released these photos, but they have urged caution. Here's more from Richard Delorier in Boston's field office.
We consider them to be armed and extremely dangerous. No one should approach them. No one should attempt to apprehend them except law enforcement. Let me reiterate that caution. Do not take any action on your own.
The FBI also reiterated that despite all of those photographs that have been floating around the internet over the past couple of days, these are the only photos that anyone should be using to try and identify the suspects in this case. You can see these photos at FBI.gov. They've also set up a website, BostonMarathonTips.FBI.gov, for people to call in tips. And Brett, I want to make this point that they didn't, I don't believe, make in that press conference. Now that people see what these two men are what they look like, people may have photos that they didn't think would be relevant that may actually be relevant. There may be even better views, close-up angles of one or both of these two men that people have at home, people have in their phones, that they can now provide to the FBI to give the federal agents a much better chance of catching these two men. So if you're at home and you see these pictures, go back and look at your pictures if you were at the marathon that day and share those photographs with the FBI. And here's more about why that's so important from the head of the FBI's Boston field office.
It is important to emphasize the images from Monday are indelible, and the horror of that day will remain with us forever. This further underscores our obligation to investigate this crime judiciously in order to bring those responsible to justice. The victims and the survivors deserve nothing less. As to Monday's victims, the FBI is committed to ensuring that victims receive the rights they are entitled to and the assistance they need to cope with the crime.
So once again, the FBI saying these are the two men that the agency believes were responsible for Monday's horrific bombing at the Boston Marathon. Whether they live in or have spent time in Boston, or whether they've lived and spent time in the United States or somewhere in the world, somebody knows who they are, Brett, and they are asking for those people to call in.
And quickly, Rick, to your point about images, there are obviously cell phone video, there's other video, and you would think that the FBI and others have been scouring also the transportation now that you know what exactly these two men were wearing, where they went, how they went from place to place. They probably know a lot more than obviously we're hearing about today.
Absolutely. And speaking to transportation, the airports are an obvious place to look. They're, I'm sure, on the lookout for these guys at every airport in America. I'm sure they're going back to look at tapes and passport photos to see if anyone matching these descriptions tried to leave America or did leave this country in the days since the bombing. But these are the men that they're looking for, and they are asking the public for help.
Rick Leventhal live in Boston. Rick, thank you. Now